Okay, here are my critiques about what I saw yesterday at Lakeview Tiny Home Community. Number one, the shelters. I don't have any issues with the actual construction, but I do have an issue with how small each one is. For an individual, we're talking 64 square feet. That's an 8 by 8 cube. And I'll cut to the video to show you the insides of the couples version, which is an 8 by 12, and then the single, which is an 8 by 8. So we're talking 96 square feet for a couple and 64 square feet for a single individual. But yet, here's the kicker. I spoke with the representatives there, and they said that pretty much all the couples shelters are already accounted for. There are no further applications being taken until next spring, possibly, if they do an expansion of what is currently going to open here in the coming week. So anyway, 64 square feet for an individual. That is not even the legal minimum size in jail. In jail, you're required to have at least a 10 by 12 spacing for each individual. And this does not compare to that at all, and does not even come close. And in a jail, if it's individual cells or paired cells, that there is a common bathroom. So a common bathroom is included in those jail size requirements outside of the personal space. And so that's one of my only real complaints about this. Otherwise, I like the idea that the units are modular and every component in there is easily replaceable. So that's a very good thing. They said that it's already has had a decade of testing in the outdoors, and it's held up very well. And so I take them on their word at that. I don't believe that these have been around for 10 years, even though they claim that it has. PalletShelter.com. And so anyway, I'm hoping that this is a good first step for the City of Oakland in creating the necessary solutions, possible long-term solutions, while we continue to work out the affordable housing issues throughout Oakland. And that's the biggest thing that Oakland really has to focus on here in the coming future and in the mayoral campaign, affordable housing, because Oakland has now become one of the most unaffordable cities in America. And Oakland used to be a very affordable city not that long ago. In fact, it was just prior to the change in the millennium at 2000. And so we can kind of go back and see who was in charge back then. And that's when a lot of Oakland's problems really started, because that individual did away with a lot of important programs that were for the community. And they wanted a change in direction, which they changed the direction. And so you know what has happened. So anyway, one of the things that the tiny home village is missing, they are getting electricity there. So that's the really good thing. But on my inspection yesterday, again, whoever did the electrical is being a cheapskate on this. And I'm calling them a cheapskate on this because it is far from being anywhere near adequate for the number of tiny homes. And with winter here, each one of those heaters is going to take 15 amps by itself. the wiring that I saw on the poles going around and going to be connecting all of the different units is a fire waiting to happen, just like what Oakland first did with the Operation Home Base over at 633 Hagenberger Road. There was a big electrical shortage that was going to be needed, and they were just approaching summer, and so it was kind of the opposite. Rather than cold, they had heat, and then those trailers were more like ovens because they're made of metal, and metal brings heat inside, and so that was a whole story on its own, so you can go back and look at that even. But they're setting up the same scenario right here. Rather than doing the right thing, which they for the amount of money that they should be spending on this to do it correctly, especially with winter approaching, everybody could have an off-grid solar system. And each off-grid solar system, we're not saying that it's going to run for 24 hours, but it's going to sustain them so that they can at least have heat, they can charge up their phones, and have light. And so these are things that can be in place in a very short amount of time, utilizing less money. In fact, I brought up the cost. I don't know how the city and PG&E have this arranged in terms of how the electricity that's being used by that community site is being paid for, whether it's coming out of city funds or PG&E is just writing that off. So I don't know those details, because that wasn't expressed in any way. But in the past, the city stepped up, and also PG&E helped fill in a lot of that bridge fund that was needed to make a transformer appear at Operation Home Base. That was, if I remember right, nearly $150,000 component. Just the part, the transformer, was $150,000. So if we took all of that same money just for the transformer, we're not even talking labor, just took the transformer, we could have everybody, all 55 tiny homes, outfitted, fully outfitted with solar electricity. And we could also make it a grid tie, so that in high demand seasons like the winter, where heaters might need to be running for longer times, by having it grid tied, we bring the electrical cost way down that the city is paying for. And it would even behoove PG&E to kick in on that project too. And because I know that a good, reliable system, because I'm running on one right now, 4,000 watts, and I have 6 PV panels. I'm going to be putting up 3 more, so I'll have a total of 9, but 6 can actually run a single tiny home. I have run a microwave, I have a refrigerator, I have all my electronics and lighting round the clock. So we're talking $3,500 to $4,000 just for the components that are going to be necessary, but everything is a plug and play, as I did. And if you want to see how it's laid out, or you want somebody to help supervise something like that, I'll help you with that, because this is what I did. This is some of the things that I did in the electrical field, and I worked with high voltage. So this is very simple. This is like basic electronics for me, but we're missing opportunities, because whoever's paying that monthly bill, we're talking that each site, that electric bill could be somewhere between $8,500 and $10,000 of electrical usage, how many hundreds of thousands of kilowatt hours of electricity used at each site, because you got to remember, not everybody's going to be using electricity. With winter here, those heaters may run 24 hours a day in some cases, depending on how cold it gets here in Oakland. And some of the coldest days in Oakland can reach below 28 degrees. But on average, Oakland dips somewhere during the coldest period, which is in last part of December, early part of January. It will dip between 28 and 30 degrees. Deaths on the streets begin to occur at 38 degrees. And I say 38 degrees because that's how cold it got here when we had all three of the different people die here at that temperature. 38 degrees. We had one in 2016, 2017, and then just after Christmas in 2018. 3 people died here because the temperature dipped below 38 degrees, or actually touched 38 degrees, because the last one, it just touched 38 degrees. But anyway, electricity would be already prepaid by having a solar system off-grid or even grid tie. And if we do grid tie, we drastically reduce the cost of electricity by feeding back what the system, the community generates but doesn't use. And so it feeds back into PG&E. You get credits back for those amount of electrical hours, and can greatly reduce the monthly bill, but regardless of who's paying for it. And that could be a big plus. Like I said, it can be a big plus for PG&E also. And this also works as a standby power if they elect to add on a battery backup system. If you add in a battery backup system, we're talking maybe a 20-foot cube cargo container with all the electronics and batteries in it. And that would be the storage unit, and then everybody's tied to that. That could be a big benefit, so that in the event of a big power outage, there's a micro power center for that community. And it can also be used by outsiders if need be, in an emergency type situation where all power's gone out in the city of Oakland, along with a lot of communication. So that could be a real lifesaver type of center. A micro power center could be installed and could power a limited number of blocks, perhaps, depending on how it's engineered. So, but Oakland is missing a great opportunity to add in off-grid power or grid-tied power to these tiny home village and experiment with that, because this is the first round of what's going to be taking place here in the future. While we start addressing affordable housing, start finding the funds or the buildings that may become available through bankruptcies because the lack of interest in these high-rises that are going up all over Oakland. And a lot of people don't want these, and these are being forced upon people now, just as this is the only way you're going to get housing type deal, and that doesn't need to be the case. So in my mayoral campaign, I'll be addressing a lot of affordability issues here in Oakland. I have personally dealt with it myself, as you know, and I don't know what a lot of the answers may be for that come with me or come with my opponents in the near future. But thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.